will be discussing about these aspects, certain illustrations, about images which will show you how to position. So we'll be talking about these aspects. So what we expect from the student by the end of this lecture is to specify, I would be using this technique for this sort of case. If there is a case with an overhanging restoration, I would use a bite wing technique. If there is a case of an impacted canine, I would use an occlusal technique. So we expect students to have a reasonably good idea of which technique to use at what particular clinical stage. To start with, we'll be dealing with bite wing radiography. Now you see there image of a film which looks like our intraoral periapical film itself, but then it has got a small wing that is attached to the package. Okay? And the name itself, bite wing name itself, came because of this special wing that is attached to the package. Nowadays we have modern ones. If you look at the second image, we have this kind of holder which is made of plastic, so you can clean it, then sterilize it, then use it for the next patient. So this is the holder, and this holder is very different from the holder which we had seen for barreling technique and the bisecting angle technique. Now we have the types of bite wing also. One may ask you, what are the types of bite wing? So we usually have the adult bite wing, most commonly used. In certain cases, if we have to take a bite wing for a child, we may require a film of a smaller size. So we have the child bite wing, and most of the bite wings, if you say, are horizontal bite wings. But there are instances when you would require to know the level of bone, which is very close to the apex of teeth, especially in periodontitis and all. So in that case, we may require a vertical bite wing. So you have illustrations for 3 of them right below the theory material that is written on the slide. Now, what if you want to use your barreling technique? You don't want to have the regular bite wing. You want to use a ring and a rod and a instrument. You do have a holder for that. Remember when I taught you the barreling technique, I told you that there is a red color holder which is used for bite wing. Now that's the holder which you see in the image, and the bite wing exactly fits into that slot, and then you can aim the ring to that of the position indicating device of the X-ray, and then you tend to get a good X-ray image. Now these 2 images will show you how exactly it is placed. Remember, when we are doing the IOPA technique, we have to take the film into the sulcus area, or into the lingual, not the sulcus area, in fact the lingual area. And the film almost entirely had to be dipped into that area. But in a bite wing, you need not do that. Half the film will be in the mandibular arch, half of the film in the maxillary arch. And then if you are using a barreling instrument, you just have to adjust the ring, and then you have to coincide the position indicating device or the cylindrical part of the X-ray to this particular X-ray unit, to this particular ring. Now one may always ask, why should I do a bite wing technique? Why not the IOPA technique? So here are a few good indications. Now, because of the positioning of the film itself and the geometry, projection geometry, a bite wing is more likely to detect very initial cases. If you carefully look at the first image, can you see a blackish area or a radiolucent area, to be more specific, in the distal aspect of the maxillary premolar and the medial aspect of the maxillary molar? And can you find another 2 small blackish areas in the mandibular, second premolar medial side and molar, second premolar distal side and molar medial side? So these are the indications. Proximal caries, initial one, a very good tool to detect initial caries. Second one, you can see interproximal bone loss. And bite wing can be pretty useful in this situation. Remember, the second one, they have taken a vertical bite wing. Now here are 2 other indications. One of them shows probably an amalgam filling or a crown. Now that shows some problematic area in the medial aspect, shown with the blackish arrows. And then just under that blackish arrow showing the number 2. Now that shows that the bone level is slightly receded there. Now this is nothing but overhanging restoration, and you can find that bite wing is very useful for this purpose. Also something called a secondary caries. This is a carious lesion that happens under a restoration. Can you see 2 small red color arrows just underneath the molar restoration? Most probably a silver amalgam filling, and 2 reddish arrows showing the secondary caries area. So bite wing is a very good radiogram to detect these things as well. Another important indication is interproximal calculus. Now, to see the bitewing carefully, check the distal aspect of the second premolar, maxillary second premolar. Can you see a triangular spike-like whitish or radio-opaque area of the distal aspect? That is interproximal calculus. So it can be very useful in evaluating intraproximal calculus. Like any other technique, even bitewing is susceptible or has its own set of errors. Now, if you see this particular image, there are whitish arrows showing you areas of overlapping. Now, that happens because of a faulty horizontal angulation. And like our intraoral periapical radiograph also, if you see the second image, you have got a cone cut. So, at times, we will not be able to adjust the position indicating or the cone shaped area of our X-ray unit to the area which is covered by the film. So in that time you tend to get these cone cut or coning off effect. The second intraoral radiograph we'll be talking about is the occlusal radiograph. Although this particular radiograph has lost much of its indications because of newer modalities such as CBCT, it still is a choice when you don't have a panoramic unit around or a CBCT unit around. So it still is useful. It has got a larger film. We have got smaller IOPA films. The occlusal film, in fact, is a larger one because it has to cover full maxilla or the full part of the mandible. So it is slightly larger in size. Now here we have got two images. In fact, first one shows you how the occlusal film is placed. In fact, the patient actually bites on the film. Okay? And the cone comes from the top region, like a maxillary incisor X-ray. So, because the patient is occluding on the film, the name of the film is occlusal film. Like bitewing, it has got its name because the patient actually tends to bite on the film. Now, have a look at the size difference. Now, in this image, the films on the lower portion are the IOP, which we have been using, and the films on the top are occlusal. The dimension is 57 by 76. Yeah, this has to be remembered from an MCQ point of view. Approximately 3 times more than the film that we use. This is because naturally we require a broader area of coverage. Now there is a classification also. Remember, different authors or different clinicians will classify these films in different way. A standard classification would be something like a cross-sectional that covers the whole of maxillary arch, topographic, which can be anterior portion from canine to canine, or probably one side, right or the left side, and a pediatric, which is used for pediatric patients. So 3 types in one. Maxillary occlusal, similarly for the mandibular occlusal. Here again we have the classification for the mandibular occlusal. So here we have a broader one, area coverage like the cross-sectional, then we have the topographic, anterior, antilateral one, and finally the pediatric mandibular occlusal radiography. Here we have the positioning. For the maxillary occlusal, I think if you almost all of you have done maxillary incisor radiography. The positioning is very much similar to that, but the angulation will be still higher. Okay? So it can go to 50 to 60 degrees positive angulation. It is much more higher for the maxillary occlusal radiograph. For the mandibular, again, it's like placing a cone for a mandibular intraoral, but it can tend to be much more lower. So it is similar to the intraoral technique, but the angulations will be more towards the extremes, more positive for maxilla, more negative for mandible. Now, what are the indications we have for the occlusal? So, if you have a case wherein your intraoral film, that you use regularly, intraoral periapical, doesn't cover the full extent of the lesion of the periapical area, naturally you would want a film that covers more area. For example, you have an impacted canine, or you have a mesiodent that is impacted, or any other supernumerary tooth that is impacted. So you can always use an occlusal film if you don't have a OPG facility or a CBCT facility near your dental. So here we have 2 more indications. The first, maxillary occlusal radiograph, you can see that there is a radiolucent simply meaning a blackish area around the apex of the central incisor. Okay, it is a larger one, so the dentist couldn't get an extent of how large the lesion is. He went for a maxillary occlusal radiograph. So you have a full coverage now. The second one shows you a linear defect, a linear radiolucent area. If you carefully check, you can see it's like a Eiffel Tower, blackish in color, running from the lateral incisor area upwards. So that is a palatal cleft. Here are a few more indications, this time for the mandibular occlusion. Let's go to the first image. Here you can see that there are radio-opaque, that means white areas in a string-like pattern. Now that could be a calcification within the salivary gland duct. Okay, we call them as silolithiasis. Second one, you can see the mandibular anterior area and a tooth which looks more like an impacted canine. Third one, you can see the mandibular posterior area and you can see that the buccal plate has expanded to a great extent. Some amount of expansion in the lingual plate also. So we can always suspect the presence of a cyst or a tumor in that particular area. Here we have a mandibular anterior occlusal radiograph which shows that a radiolucent area. You could carefully check that has a zigzag pattern. As I told you earlier, fractures, whenever you tend to see them on a radiograph, usually tend to have this zigzag pattern, okay, radiolucent zigzag pattern. So that's an indication again of a mandibular occlusal radiograph. This is the end of the topic, and here we have an occlusal radiograph wherein you have to direct the X-ray film right from the top of the skull. See the image there? Right from the top of the skull, almost 110 degrees positive angulation you are dropping in the X-ray. That has to pass through the thick cranial vault, it has to pass through the mid-facial skeleton. Then it has to create an image of the maxillary teeth. Okay, so this is known as a vertex occlusal, although it is not very commonly used nowadays, because of newer techniques such as the CBCT and the panoramic. It is still of historical importance. Okay, this radiograph is known as vertex occlusion, not very popular as the other occlusal techniques.